Today, I want to give you 5 quick tips and tricks for building better settlements in unmodded Fallout 4. I've got a junk fence gate here, and I want to block off the neighborhood that I'll first be moving into in Sanctuary. If we try and move other junk fences right next to this, though, we run into a clipping problem. We're only able to put these objects so close together before they go into the red, leaving these giant, less than appealing looking gaps between the objects. What we can do is we can go into decorations and floor coverings and grab one of the small floor mats over here, something like this, and you'll notice that it kind of stays up off the ground, and I've got some in the background there. You can put them up on top of one another, and essentially what happens here is when I go to place something, it only cares about the collision of the one that you're holding, so it'll let me put those other things like in the wall. Cool thing about this, though, is that you'll notice that, again, these objects, for non-stackable objects, will kind of float on top of one another. We can grab one of these fence pieces, and as we drag it towards the mat, we'll notice it pops up for a second. So I'll show you that again. Drag slowly towards it. When it pops up, it's now on that mat. So if we move this mat around, we're moving the fence around. And we can even move multiple mats like that. So this allows us to come over here next to our fence, and where it wouldn't let us place this object right on top of the other fence piece before, now it only cares if the mat itself is overlapping. So now we can kind of get these right on top of one another, maybe even where that set of tires looks like it's going through one common pillar. I think that works. Now, when you delete the mat, the object may sink a little bit, and that is totally normal. Generally looks a little bit more natural in the process because now all these supporting beams tend to fall with it. But again, this works for any non-snapping piece. If it's a snappable piece, it won't hop up on the rug the same way. So let's grab one more fence piece and I'll show you that again. Drag it until we get the pop-up like that. And we can grab one or many mats. And again, kind of bump these up right next to one another. Again, we'll look at putting the rubber tires around that fence post. And again, when we remove the mat, sometimes it'll drop, sometimes it won't. Depends on the ground that it's sitting on. Rug glitch makes it possible to do all sorts of decorative things for non-snappable items. Now, what about snappable items, though? What do we do there? Well, we can do a group select trick. Let's go into structures, wood, and floors, and look for a small floor to the right here. So that first small floor will do. We're going to line this up as close as we can with the corner of this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just using this as a rough guide for how large this should be. We'll put a wall up. And now we can go back to floors and go, whoops, back to floors and go one to the left, and we're looking for this shack upper floor. And we can use this to fix the roofs in Sanctuary, or at least the inside, to prevent less light from coming in, make it look a little more finished on the inside. We can use a similar trick with, say, barn roof pieces to fix the outer exterior roofs as well, but I'll show you this real quick. When we have all these things in kind of one chain of objects, you know, we can pick any of them up and move them. But if we hold the build button, that's A on Xbox, now all of a sudden we can move this entire thing as a unit. So what I'm going to do here is go over to concrete this time. There's a couple different objects we can use for this. This does allow you to sink into the ground, which gives us a little bit more freedom and flexibility with where we can put this. Now in that case, I'm going to stick it a little bit further out the back, because what that should do, almost, is hide that floorboard. If I took a little bit more time placing it, we could hide it a little bit better. It wouldn't quite show out here. We can get rid of that wall. But from the inside, it looks a lot better. And you can just take your time placing it a little bit more than I did. You'll find a spot that works. And it fills in the really horrible gaping holes in the ceiling. Obviously, we can still see like where the ceiling is broken. If we take a quick run next door to the original player house, you can see how much more daylight you can see on the other side of that deteriorated roof. Now for this next one, I want to show like where we have natural ground, I can sink this pillar. So into the dirt, into this foundational object. But if I've created floors, I can't sink into that floor with an object. What you can do is come back out to your decorations and miscellaneous, and there is a campfire object with one of the DLCs. I apologize, I forget which one it is. I believe it's the workshop. That has natural ground in it though, and so now we can sink the pillar where we wouldn't normally have been able to sink it. So you can use this actually in combination with things like the rug glitch as well. If we want to take, let's get a prefab structure. We'll get a little shack. And again, let's just say for whatever reason we want to sink something into the floor in here. We can't because it won't let us do that. If we bring this over here, we'll be able to sink into the floor, and we could, in theory, grab some mats as well. Where are we? Decorations, floor. We'll put a couple mats out here on the street like we did before. We'll put a non-snappable item on top of those. For example, a turret. Where are those? Those are in their own category, defense. So that turret should now be part of these. It is, okay. So we can do that. We'll put the carpet right there. If we now grab the chain of objects here, it should let us sink into the ground there, and in turn sink that object that's connected to all the mats. So not that this particular example is super useful. Right there. But now we can get rid of the campfire, get rid of that. Can we even exit the building? I don't think so. So we've trapped ourselves in here, but we can move this to let it go. And you can make it do things that, you know, the game really doesn't want you to do. So in that case, we've combined 3 different glitches there to make that happen. The campfire glitch allows us to sink the pillar into ground that it wouldn't otherwise sink. And then the rug glitch that was attached to it allows us to put a non-snappable object and clip it into something where, again, it would not have let us clip it. I want to talk about 2 really useful ways to move power around your settlements. For this, I'm going to grab just the basic generator. Does not matter. And then we'll come back over to walls. We can do concrete. This again doesn't matter what kind of wall we're talking about. I just want to do a solid wall that prevents us from wiring through. So let's look at something that needs power. We'll get a light over here. Like this, and it does require power. It does not have it. If I try and wire it direct, it doesn't work. But what we can do is come into connectors, and actually I'll put 2 connectors on the ground here because we're going to do 2 different things. One, we can use the rug glitch that we just learned about, so decorations, floor coverings, rug, and we can put a conduit here on the rug. Now if I connect this, I could, of course, route it around. If I try and move this connector, though, it won't let me put it where I otherwise couldn't wire. If I move the rug, it's totally fine with that, and it connects the wire through. The other thing that we can do is we can put this connector on the floor. Let's delete this wire. Store. Okay. So the other thing that we can do is we can wire this one that we can connect to. And while looking at the wire and the object, we can hit the Y button on console on Xbox, and we hear a little spark, and we're starting to wire, and it will let us, even though it doesn't animate it, it lets us connect something that we couldn't, because we're technically tricking the game, right? And I'll show you that again. Let me, let's do this again. So we'll delete this wire. We'll delete this wire. And again, it will not let me connect this. It will let me connect here, though. So looking at the generator and the wire that we just connected, we hit the Y button to wire. We hear a little spark. We don't see a wire. That's okay. because we can connect it through now to the thing that we couldn't before. Now, I can't move this around now because it thinks that I shouldn't be placing that object there, but if you get it where you want, you're able to connect it. So that's really useful for a little wiring trick. At this point, I've spammed a bunch of garbage objects all over my settlement. This is not something that you need to do, but eventually you will run out of space in a settlement. And you can see the size meter in the top right is approaching the max, so it's yellow. When that fills up, it will not let me build any more items. Doesn't matter what it is. Now, there are mods that can help, but obviously an unmodded, that is not an option. So we can actually trick the game out into thinking that we've gotten rid of objects. So collect a bunch of random weapons. The larger they are, the easier this is, because you don't have to go looking for little pistols that fell into a bush somewhere. I'm just going to drop these in the ground. I tend to keep them in piles of 5 because then I can drop them easier. You don't want to drop a pile because a pile is one thing. 5 individual objects are 5 objects. So if we go into build mode, and be careful here, I've seen people say scrap. Do not scrap. That is a waste. If I scrap this, I get materials. I guess that can be okay, but it's also going to get rid of the gun. So what I want to do is I want to store. I'm going to store this in the workshop. And if you watch the top right size meter, every time I do that, it climbs down a little bit. In fact, there it already climbed down into the yellow. And we can store all these things in the workshop. And the good news is we're not destroying the weapons. We're just putting them over in the workshop. We can pick them up again and we can repeat this trick again. So we can use this to basically buy a bunch of space back, and you can repeat this multiple times. You can get it back down to 0 if you want. I wouldn't recommend doing that from full to 0 more than once or twice, probably. I mean, you can keep going. You can certainly push it, but do expect instability and potential crashes eventually. I lost the settlement at some point where I literally could not change anything without the game crashing. It was just too much for it to think about. If we come back over here into our workshop and transfer goods, you'll notice that all those weapons are still here, and I can pick them up, drop them on the ground, and repeat the process again until I had enough space to work with. So again, just Pip-Boy, drop those things on the ground, whatever button that is. Go into your build mode, and then just store these things in the workshop. And again, if you keep an eye on the size meter, you'll notice I'm getting more buildable space back without having to delete actual settlement objects. So that is a way you can, again, just kind of extend the size of your settlement. Some of them are pretty limited in the build space that they afford you, but do keep in mind you are glitching the game and pushing it beyond what it's expecting to with something like that. So use sparingly, save early, save often, and have lots of backups. But hopefully you found some of those tips really useful. There's a lot more to settlements that we'll cover in future videos. I want to cover one on how they actually work. Settlers, mechanics, food, water, defense, all those things. But to get into the building and start having some fun, hopefully some of those tips will make you feel a little less constrained and have a little bit more creative flexibility so you can spam beds all over the street of Sanctuary. I don't know. You'll probably build something more attractive. This was just a demonstration. Hope you enjoyed. If you found it useful, hit the like, subscribe for more, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, move the mouse. Signing off.